I was going to open with a dad joke about Akatosh, but I realize it's kind of dated. What's going on, YouTube? Well, we're inside of Apocrypha, inside the Infinite Archive, to go over our first of 3 weekly rotational vendors. These bad boys rotate at Tuesday at 10 a.m. I try to do them as soon as possible on my break for you guys at work. So we do these a bit live. So we'll see what we got in store for us. But as always, feel free to grab the gold on the table. And then we could see Filer Ool, the first of 3 vendors, got anything good for us. And we start off with a music box lead. And if you're like, ooh, where does that come from? Well, it comes from the Prime Cataloger World Boss inside of Apocrypha. So spending 5,000 archival fortunes to save yourself from farming a world boss, unless it's like the Oaken Soul Ring world boss, you know, which can be really tedious. And you're like, oh, you know, the final steps of getting this bad boy. It's just not worth it. And even then, even if it is for a really good mythic, I would still encourage you to skip it. Then we get the Torque Tonal Focus, and this bad boy is actually even easier to get than the one that we just looked at because it's all bosses inside of a public dungeon, which has multiple bosses in it. So this is actually an even easier lead for you to go get. The Torque Tonal Constancy is actually a pretty interesting mythic. It's relatively easy when you're trying to figure out what it does. While your stamina is low, you increase your magicka recovery. While your magicka is low, you increase your stamina recovery. Yeah, some PvP builds could use something like this because they're constantly using and wheeling and dealing with magicka and stamina. The problem is that there's just better sets to use, and there's better mythics. Mythics with a little more razzle dazzle, as the kids say. Now, next up is a bound style page. Now, this is the blind. I actually think this looks pretty dope. It's kind of got that shattered feeling to it. You know, it looks really cool as a mask, in my opinion. Not to be the bearer of bad news, because this comes from Bedlam Vale, but in a more difficult dungeon, it's relatively cheap to purchase on the ESO open market. And if you buy it with archival fortunes, you're not able to then sell it. So you're basically just saving yourself, you know, a bit of gold, you know, and unfortunately, it seems like this was really overfarmed. I mean, there's 85 listings right now. Average sale history, 683,000 gold. You could see that this one has just been absolutely spiking in farming just because it was available, and everybody wants to, you know, make a little bit of money. So it does look really cool, but this is probably one you buy with gold, honestly. Next up, we start to get into some interesting things, because I notoriously am like, ugh, you know, we're not going to talk about all the blueprints and how valuable they were because you're not able to sell the blueprints, only the made items. But I will tell you, a gigantic wine barrel and some of these cabinets actually are some pretty decent items. They're from more recent DLCs, especially the Colovian wine barrel, the Redguard pot. There's so many pots in the game, I wouldn't worry about that one. But especially this wine barrel, it does cost a decent amount of heartwood, but thankfully doesn't cost any mundane runes. Costs a little bit of nickel, regulus, wax, and mastic, but not really anything super crazy there. You're probably not going to make crazy amounts of money selling these, but when there's a housing contest coming around, having a recipe like this is actually pretty cool, and I'm going to buy it myself because I see myself filling a cellar of these things, and it's like, well, now instead of having to pay, you know, probably 300,000 to 400,000 gold for this blueprint, I'll just buy for 2,000 archival fortune. So in this situation, and they are niche, I do think it's worth buying these, especially if you see yourself making multiple of them. This one I don't necessarily see myself making multiple of, although I could see myself stacking an entire wall of these things, almost like a bank vault, you know, where you're like pulling out the different drawers because there's like different keychains that open them up. And I thought about making like an Apocrypha style like book home, and a wall of these would look really cool. So in any situation where I could think I could make like 50 of these and feel happy, those are the situations that I would look at purchasing these blueprints. As a player, though, you're going to have to determine how much you care about this stuff. And then if you were to try to resell these, just know, though, that most players are going to buy these with archival fortunes, which is going to be the sad thing if you try to resell these in the near future. The distant future, though, you'll be able to, you know, sell them relatively easily, but probably not nearly as much as when they first came out, such as the Colovian wine barrel, which is still relatively new. Hope all that information wasn't too overwhelming. Thankfully, this next stuff, very simplistic. Balforen 2,000 archival fortunes, it's a skip. Medium armor, I mean, like, some people are like, Jake, DPS is great for companions. No, it's not. My boy David has better thumbs than my boy Bastion does, and we all know how David is. So this is one that I would also say is probably something that you would skip. There we have our 2 books. Apocrypha. Apocrypha is probably one of the most interesting names for a book I've ever seen. And then there's Obscure Killers of the North. So for all the serial killer enjoyers out there, for those of you who watch Crime Watch Daily 24/7, give this to them. This is a book they will love. Then we have Courage, Shock Damage, Wayfarer's Mastery. Thankfully, all of these are skips. Archival Fortunes are so expensive. And yes, Shock Damage is actually a pretty decent script, but it's so common. Why would I want to encourage you guys to spend premium currency on something that you just get by playing the game? And yes, Shock Damage is great for sorcerers. Yes, subclassing will make Shock Damage pretty good, but don't buy it for Archival Fortunes. Just do some daily quests. You can do like 99% of the daily quests in the game, give you some sort of script. Then we finish on our fragments. This one, Disgusting Spoils, already comes from the Infinite Archive. Don't want you to encourage you to buy that. Fragment of the Badman literally is relatively straightforward too. It comes from Badman Hollow. It's an area inside of Glenumbra, and it's a guaranteed drop. Please don't do that. And then we have the Sigil Globe. Did I say that? I don't know if I said that correctly. It's also a fragment. I think this one comes from Somerset. You could buy these things for like 7,000 to 10,000 gold on the ESO open market, sometimes even less. So would not encourage you to buy these bad boys. But these are not bind on pickup. So there are some weeks when it is worth purchasing, such as the one last week. But this one, the vendor, to give the TLDR as we go through each vendor, is definitely the Wine Barrel. Maybe you buy this with gold, which is kind of an odd suggestion, but everybody's flooding the market with them right now because they're like, people can buy with Archival Fortunes. It's time to flood the market with them. Maybe you buy with gold. Our second vendor here is inside of the Scholarium, which is inside of Ivea. This area will become free to play, I believe, in July, because it'll be added to the ESO base game fully. Now, if you talk to the Chronicler here, he will sell you rotational scripts. All the stuff above this, not rotational. First thing is in Veneration. I'll be honest, this is not very helpful. Reducing critical damage to an enemy, not super impactful. Even in PvP, where, your enemies might be like, ooh, I'm going to go crit this guy. And you're like, no, you're not. Not very helpful. Magic of Steel, same problem. Like, there's things like potions and heavy attacking. Some people even know about heavy attacking. Like, I would just encourage you to just start doing that, and then you won't have to worry about, needing to steal people's magicas, or worried if you're getting your magica stolen. Then there's Dispel, which also unfortunately is not a very helpful one. Cavalier's Charge, though, I do think is pretty cool. It's a signature script. It's relatively affordable. It looks awesome. I would encourage you to buy this one. And then Class Mastery, which is our static item. When I was, trying to fill out my characters, I would just buy all of them that I didn't have just to be a completionist. But realistically, the only one that I would encourage you to own here is probably Cavalier's Charge. Maybe somebody knows of some sticky thing that you can do with these other things, but I don't know what other benefit there are to using these in any sort of builds, but let me know if you can think of one in the comments below. Now, next up, we are inside the Imperial Ciy. Now, this one is a pretty interesting one because we have to use our Telvar stones. If you ever need help finding these bad boys, use the ESO helper website below, where you kind of break down these vendors in a little bit more detail, and don't accidentally pick up the stupid shield that's there. And we start with Langor's Periite. So this is an interesting one because it gives you 2, 3, and 4. It's decently competent. Weapon and spell, crit resistance, offensive penetration, things that you generally want. And you deal 6% increased damage to blocking players. When you deal light attack damage to an enemy that is immune to crowd control, you apply Langor for 10 seconds, reducing their magicka and stamina recovery by 248. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. Now, a set like this is a bit odd because it does quite a few different things. It gives you weapon and spell, gives you crit resistance, penetration, all things that you want. And then it actually gives you an effect that's pretty decent also. So how do you rate a set like this? Well, it's a bit difficult. I would say this is like a 7.5. It's about halfway between good to great. You could definitely do some things with it. But the problem is that even in a meta like the ones where we would have blocking metas, you're not really going to see a set like this used, so it's hard to rate it higher, but it's a good set. Not something you're going to buy with Telvar, but this one might be. Powerful Assault is the marquee support set. When you cast an assault ability while in combat, you and up to 5 other group members within 12 meters gain 307 weapon and spell damage for 15 seconds. So good uptime, good unnamed buff bonus, and you can see it's reflected in the price here. Now I pulled up the rings just because rings are usually more valuable. These are gold rings. You can see that they are triple the value of the Telvar that we are seeing, which is 100k Telvar. Now, obviously, you can actually still buy the rings. They're just lower down on the actual thing here. So this is actually one that if you wanted to try to convert some Telvar to gold, maybe you buy it. The reason that you would buy it though, versus trying to convert your Telvar with the superb reward coffers or some of the other stuff is just that you want to sell one item versus like 50. Well, you know, so I understand why you would want to do that. I totally do. So if you would want to do that, maybe this is a good one to do it on, because this is a very, very good support set. It's used across all swaths of content. It's a 10 out of 10 set. I mean, it is one of the most sought after sets in the game. And that's reflected in the price that you just saw. People are still paying hundreds of thousands of gold for it. So one to consider, definitely, if you've got a lot of Telvar. One that you don't need to worry about, though, is this one, because Indrake Hide Strap literally just comes from world bosses in Somerset. If it was like a wandering world boss, maybe this would have a little bit more value to it, but Savara's Bane's Ward's also not anything that you really need to worry about. Now, this next one is fascinating, because if you Google it, which I do, you know, to pull up these graphics here, you have a lot of posts about people who are just like, I cannot for the life of me find this item. So that's always a really good sign on something that you may want to purchase. Now, this one, I'll tell you, just comes from treasure chests in Cold Harbor. But I'll tell you something about treasure chests in Cold Harbor. Do you guys see this picture right here? It's a little bit hard to see that there's a treasure chest there, because the whole zone is very blue. And the Marking Ring itself is actually a really, really good set. It gives you 100 weapon and spell damage and 1157 armor for every 3-piece set you're wearing. Well, technically it's 3 or more pieces of a set you're wearing. So if you're wearing 2 5-piece sets, you're still getting this twice, this bonus of gain 100 weapon and spell damage and 1157 armor. The Marking Ring sees itself fall in and out of meta favorability pretty decently, but I think it's a great mythic to own, especially if you're into PvP, just because it is so good at utilizing 3-piece sets, which can be pretty powerful, especially if you want to try to build some, you know, ways where you want to build in an arena weapon, because then you run a 3-piece and a 2-piece arena weapon, and you still have other slots that you can fill in other things. Maybe you want to run a 5-piece and then a 1-piece trainee or something along those lines. You can really get creative with sets like the Marking Ring. That's what I love about it. So in a situation, do you want to buy this 25k Telvar? If you're a PvPer, you got 25k Telvar lying around and you don't want to run around and do chests, and you don't have the excavation passive to where chests are highlighted in the overworld, I would buy this. The Reach treasure maps are unfortunately an easy skip. They're close. I mean, I even pulled up the value here just to check, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. You can see some people are like, oh, you know, 10k gold, but then others 900 gold, 1,000 gold, so not worth converting your Telvar into. Then we have the rings of what we talked about earlier, and then it gets a little bit interesting because we have something like Heroism. Heroism is one of the best PvP scripts in the game, in my opinion, for a very simplistic reason. If you are in combat all the time, you are always going to be building your ultimate, and that's fantastic for the PvP combat book, unfortunately. So if you're going to be in combat all the time, might as well be building up your ultimate. I generally encourage people to own this. The Telvar is steep, but if you're a PvPer, you probably have Telvar because you do things like Mid-Year Mayhem, Imperial Ciy. Maybe you want to splash cash on this one, maybe not, up to you. Interrupt, Bleed Damage, and Leeching Thirst are ones that are a bit too niche for me to recommend with Telvar because it is a premium currency. Just do your daily quests and see if you can get those bad mamma jammas. Next up is Fragment of the Storm for 25k Telvar. You're saving yourself from running Tempest Island, which is, you know, probably now worth 25k Telvar. But I will tell you, this does look pretty cool if you were to go unlock all of it. You will have to do MOL. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to go all the way to the final boss on the, the Mall of, I can never pronounce it correctly. I'm just not even gonna say it. MOL. You're gonna have to do that, but you only have to do it once because it is a guaranteed drop. Fragments are guaranteed drops, and unlike Antiquities, which are not guaranteed, obviously, because if you just farm one treasure chest to get things such as the Marking Ring lead, your life would be a lot easier. Would not encourage you to buy this. Tempest Island is very straightforward, but of everything we talked about, definitely Heroism is definitely one to consider, as well as maybe you want to consider Powerful Assault if you want to try to, if you got a bunch of Telvar, you're like, I want to convert it to gold, but I don't want to join a guild trader. It's probably an easy to sell that in the zone chat. The Marking Ring lead is also pretty good just because it's going to keep you from farming Cold Harbor treasure chests, which unfortunately are really finicky to go and find. And especially if you don't have the excavation skill line level up to where they're highlighted in the overworld, it's even worse for you. Then I would consider things like the barrels And also maybe you want to buy the blind mask, but that's the TLDR. I hope that was helpful to kind of summarize everything again. Cavalier's Charge also, if you want to buy that for gold, feel free to. But thank you guys so much again for watching. As always, we're doing our 3 giveaway drawings. All you need to do to enter is leave a comment in the comments below / like on the video, please. You leave as many comments and likes as you would like on the video. On multiple videos, technically you can't like the video more than twice, or more than once. But second thing is, just make sure you're subscribed. We're on the road to some more subscribers. I forgot where we even are. We're at 31,603, so please, we are less than 300 or 400 subs away from 32,000. And the third thing is, look for a hidden word we flash upon the screen. There's one hidden word on every video for the month of June. Each one will give you a giveaway code if you're the first person to find and comment it in the comments below. Thank you guys one last time, and I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.